You're listening to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast about one of the most legendary bands of all time, Deep Purple. We take a look at the music, history, and people behind the band Deep Purple and beyond. Welcome to the Deep Purple Podcast, the first and only podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Today's episode is episode number 27, Glenn Hughes, Play Me Out. And coming to you from the prematurely dark and gloomy suburbs of Chicago, I'm your host, Nathan Beaudry.
And coming to you from Providence, Rhode Island, it's John the Long Goodbye Matola.
Oh, nice. You switched it up from the Rhode Island facts.
But I do have Rhode Island facts. Do you know that over four... But wait.
What's Rhode Island's chief export? Podcast hosts?
Yes. Do you know that over 400 Rhode Islands can fit inside Alaska?
Oh, I didn't know that, but I can believe it.
It is believable. I don't know who cobbled that together, but it's I cannot fact check it, but I'm sure it's true.
It sounds right to me.
And
I don't
folks,
think we need to fact check it any more than that.
Stay tuned. Next week, the state bird and all the other stuff you've been bothering me about till I tell people.
We've been teasing that for like a month.
I know. Shit, I should have gone with that today.
So, if you want to keep up to date on this show, please subscribe in Apple Podcasts for all of your latest Rhode Island facts. You can subscribe on YouTube. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Links to all that are at deeppurplepodcast.com. You can contact us at info@deeppurplepodcast.com. And if you like what you hear, probably don't like what you hear so far, but later on in the show, if you decide you like what you hear, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. As little as $1 a month. We'd really appreciate it. And to help new people discover the show, leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts. So to start off today, kicking it off, thanks to our patrons, we've got Clay Wambacher and Steve Seaborg of alltheworldsastage.net at the $5 tier, Peter Gardeau at the $3 tier, Els Murders and Spacey Noodles at the $1 tier. And a big thank you to our brothers at the Deep Dive Podcast Network. Thank you for all of your support. Riot, Sabbath, Bloody Podcast, The Simple Man at Skinner Reconsidered, and Terry T-Bone Mathley at T-Bone's Prime Cuts. And I'm adding an additional thank you to our good friend Jorg Planer. I'm calling him the patron saint and archivist of the Deep Purple Podcast, because anytime I go to him for any sort of, if I'm in my research unsure of something or can't verify it, I just message him and he gets right back to you with an insane amount of information. And not just, if I say, oh, when was this album released officially? He won't just say, here's the date. He'll be like, here's 3 articles about the album coming out from different newspapers and all this sort of stuff. It's really, really impressive. So big thank you to him for all that he does for the show. Some updates. So speaking of Jorg Planer, there was some controversy about our tweet about the release date for Come Taste the Band. And everybody on October 10th, I believe it was tweeting, oh, it was released on this day. It was released on this day, but it wasn't. It actually, we had talked about this on the episode, and I never really pieced it together until talking to Jorg. We kind of had a back and forth and figured it out. But basically, it looks like it was released at the beginning of November because there was an issue with the sleeve. And I thought, what could the issue with the sleeve be? But remember when we talked about how they accidentally printed it and it said, come and taste the band?
Yeah.
Well, that was the issue. They printed all these sleeves. They said, come and taste the band. And Coverdale looked at it and was like, what the hell is this? So they had to redesign the whole thing, and it delayed the album coming out for like a month. So everyone was erroneously posting that that's when it was released, but it wasn't. So
yeah, that little and just makes it sound kind of clunky. I'm glad that they held out.
It was the right move. I'm surprised, based on what we've heard of Deep Purple and their management throughout the years, that they weren't like
release it anyway.
Yeah, who cares? It's like that scene in Elf where the dad's like, you think I'm gonna take a $10,000 bath so a little kid knows what happens in the story? Send it to the printer.
Yeah.
They print this kid's story that's like missing the last page, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. James Caan was in charge of the band.
James Caan, just send it. Press those discs, get them out there.
Come and taste the band. Who the hell's gonna notice?
Who cares? Get used to it. I'd like to thank also Scott Haskin, who sent us over the complete lyrics to Share Kazoo and Other Stories. He's got like this file that had all the actual complete lyrics, which was really cool.
Wow.
I'm gonna put that up on the website in the show notes. You can look at it there. Another interesting fact, a lot of interesting little one-off tidbits. Here we go. I'm gonna find this little thing to show you, but basically found out that we had talked about this a long time ago, but there's this tribute to Deep Purple. Funky Junction played a tribute to Deep Purple, where it's actually Phil Lynott and I think maybe some other members of Thin Lizzy. We had talked about it.
Yes.
And I've listened to it. It's really good. I thought it was actually just Thin Lizzy, but I guess it's kind of a little bit of a crossover band. But Mike Healy on Twitter points out that this album cover is not that band or that show or anything. This is actually the band Hard Stuff, John Gustafson's band that we talked about last week, how they did that version of, what was it from Share Kazoo? I've already forgotten.
Driving
One of the
Me
songs.
Wild? Was it Driving Me Wild? No,
wasn't Driving Me Wild. It was
Donkey Ride Dream.
Monster in Paradise, I think. Donkey Ride Dream. So yeah, so I just thought it was kind of funny that they're like, I don't know, just put any old band on that cover. You're like, it's not even the band. It's not even the right band. They just had a picture that probably the first picture that they saw, and they just said, slap it on the cover, talking about these 70s record companies that just
oh boy,
didn't seem to give a shit about anything. Imagine that you just release, we talked about in Rainbow when they used some shots of Elf and some shots of Richie to make it look like they played. You can understand that because they hadn't played any shows yet, but to take another band seems kind of crazy.
I don't know. With some of the stuff that I hear about these people, it's just like, I would try and get away with being that sloppy at my job. They would have fired me a long time ago.
I guess all that matters is you are continuing to bring some money in. They don't really care about anything else. Spacey Noodles messaged me on Patreon to let me know. We talked about Ian Gillan's Karamba website. And apparently he launched a YouTube channel called Ian Gillan's Karamba TV.
I love it.
So I'm going to have a link to that in the show notes too. He hasn't really updated it in about a year or so, but there's a few videos in there kind of entertaining if you want to check them out. And then we also have our buddy Steve Seaborg at alltheworldsonstage.net, our patron, offered tickets to see UFO, but I'm actually already have tickets to go see something else that day. But apparently he's going to be at the Deep Purple show, so I'm going to get to meet him before the show, which will be really cool.
Awesome.
And then lastly, on Twitter, I started an alphabetical poll to pick everyone's favorite Mark I song. So we got a few rounds left of the first round before we see who advances to the next round. But the songs you would expect, April, Hush, and what's the third one so far?
Most of the ones that I'm picking are losing, by the way.
Yeah. Well, we've got a few. It seems like the obvious picks so far are winning. The most recent one that I posted has Lalania. What's the other big one? Not Wring That Neck.
Mandrake Root.
That Mandrake Root to me seems like it's going to be the winner for this round, but I guess we will see. I'm calling it up right now just to see where we're at. So it looks like, Mandrake Root's kind of running away with it. Lalania is probably the closest second place we've had so far.
Nice.
Listen, Learn, Read On in third place, and Love Help Me in a very distant fourth place in this round. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. And I think that's about it for that. But we do, of course, as we talked about last episode, have an exciting news from the field segment because you went to go see Deep Purple, and we have not really talked about it at all.
No, I was
saving it for the show.
Yeah, I did give you some updates during the show, and post, but a couple
texts. But
the show was butters.
Butters. I still haven't found that sheet. I gotta look for that.
using our old vernacular, but
Yes.
um, yeah. So anyways, yeah. So I went to the show. God, what was it? Last Thursday, Wednesday or Thursday? When was it?
Last Wednesday, I think.
Wednesday.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna throw some pictures that you sent me just to.
Right. Right. So
So
last Wednesday. So there we go. First picture up there is me and my buddy, my new buddy Peter Gardeau,
thank you.
sharing our beers.
So what are you drinking there? It looks very interesting.
Um, let me see. I think this was this the first or the second beer that I had? Peter, by the way, when he came in, he bought me 2 beers.
Oh, you see, he underpromised and over-delivered.
Yeah.
He said
So
he was just gonna buy you one.
what a guy. Well, when I came in, I was actually like I had met somebody else while waiting for him because we met in Mohegan Sun at this I think it's called the Lansdowne Irish Pub or something like that. So I was sitting at the bar and I saw a guy with an Iron Maiden t-shirt. So of
Yep.
course I'm like, "You going to the show?" Yep. So we started talking about music. And then Peter walked in and he had 2 of his friends with him, Don and Mark, who are not. He started off by saying they're not listeners of the show, but I'm hoping that maybe that changes.
Oh, that'd be nice.
But yeah, so and it was great timing because when my other new friend got up to leave, like they all came in, so he sat down, and I think I had a I think that was a Sweet Baby Jesus porter.
Oh, okay.
So it was like I think it was a peanut butter porter or something. I was being all like, fancy and shit, and like, Peter was just like, none of that fancy stuff for me. Um, but yeah, anyways, yeah, he wanted to take this. He's like, "Come on, let's take a selfie and send it to Nate."
Nice. I
Yeah. So
appreciated that.
so we sat down. We were like talking for like quite a while. I think we are probably there for like an hour or so before the show started because it was like basically like right downstairs,
Hmm.
because it was in the casino, and so we're like, talking about like just everything like music, and it was really funny because we'd never met before, and like there was there was one moment he was talking about something. I think he was talking about like his old band performing something. He's like, we weren't even talking about like which bands, and he's like, "Oh, that song Bad Time by and I'm like, Grand Funk, and he goes, yeah, Grand Funk. And it's like, it was just like it was really cool to like, hang out with somebody that like, just knows all the same music, and
Yeah.
you don't have to like explain like, oh, like, this is who's this and who's that and everything. But he was like definitely like singing the praises of the show, and it was funny because he's like, "Oh, this episode where you said this or whatever," and so it was really cool. It was very like great guy, really interesting to talk to, friendly. His friends were really nice.
Great.
When I told him what the next episode was, I don't know if he asked or if I told him, and I'm just like, yeah. I said the next. I said after the next episode, the one the week after is going to be the first Rainbow album. And he's like, yes. He was like all excited. Yeah, Rainbow. So it was
Awesome.
like very cool. So yeah, so we hung out at the bar for a while, and then we went in, grabbed our seats, which I forgot how small the venue was.
It looked really small from the pictures.
Yeah, it was like it was like a half like venue, it was like
Yeah.
not what do you call it, a um yeah, I don't exactly know like what the size of it was, but if you look at the seating map, we had like, the side seats from the stage, and when we got in, we're basically sitting on the floor. We're like the first row before the floor seats. So I mean, it's like you really couldn't get much better seats unless you were like sitting dead on. But
Yeah, it
there
looks
was
great.
really no bad seats in the house. But even like him and his friends were surprised. We were just like, shit, these are good seats.
Yeah.
So we got in time for Joyous Wolf, who
Yep.
if you're watching, you see pictured here. And I actually hadn't heard them, but on my hour plus trip to Connecticut, I put on their album on Spotify to get familiar with them, and they have some pretty good stuff. I see how they fit in with Deep Purple. They have that kind of modern take on like the classic rock vibe.
Are they just a trio?
No, there's
Oh, no,
no,
no.
there's 4 of them.
Yeah, I'm trying to look. Obviously, yeah, that guy doesn't have a guitar. So, oh
Yeah,
yeah, I
no,
think he
there's
just looks like the bass player is just standing behind him from this shot.
Yeah, so they're really good. So we caught maybe a few songs of their set before they left because we weren't like, oh, let's rush in and see them right from the beginning, but we didn't want to miss them either. So they did a pretty good performance. Pretty, you could see pretty stripped down, everything like that. So I liked them. I thought they were really good, very appropriate to have on the road with them with Purple. And
Young looking guys.
yeah, and and then the main attraction.
Main attraction, Deep Purple.
Yep. Which yeah, it was happened really fast too, and they played for a long time too. So this was really cool. I sent this picture to you as like
Yeah.
the like an updated
Yeah.
thing of In Rock, but from where we were sitting and the way that the screens were set up, you have like Ian Pace on one side, Ian Gillan on the other side, and then that's it.
Yeah, like so I guess that screen in the background would have filled in if you were sitting dead center would have
Yeah,
looked like you can see I think that's is that Don Airy poking out from the
I
side there.
think I think so
Yeah, it's funny.
because
I like that they've updated the In Rock. Well, they've kind of done that ice theme to match with like the Infinite album, and
yeah,
then they've also updated their portraits so they don't look like they're 25 anymore.
right, yeah. Um, yeah, which is it was it was really funny because Don Airy has like this friggin' bowl cut or whatever.
Look like little Lord Fauntleroy.
Well, no, he was like we were watching him and everything, and it was funny. I think it was Peter or Don or Mark, I think, but he one of them said and Peter leaned over and he's like, yeah, like Don said it looks like Charles Bronson on keyboards or something. And he started cracking up because he looked just like him. We're like, oh my god, we're like cracking up. We came up with a couple of funny ones, but yeah. Anyway, so they had that up on the screens, and then they dimmed the light, and they had that Mars Bringer of War, which was
Oh,
like the
yep, yep.
song they came out to
Oh,
by
great.
Holtz,
Yep.
which was I thought kind of a unusual song to intro them with, but I mean still appropriate. I mean Deep Purple can do whatever they want. Um,
This is true.
so yeah, so as you can see here, they came out with a very little pizzazz or flash. Like the only one that seemed to have dressed up was Roger Glover. Like everybody else was just like you see Ian Gillan just has a pair of like old man pants and a black t-shirt on.
Oh, one of our followers on Twitter um went to see them
Yeah.
recently and posted a picture of Ian Pacey. He's like afterwards he's wearing like a cardigan and he looks like just like an old guy that just got the newspaper and is going to sit in his recliner and read it.
Well, it's funny because like Ian Gillan was wearing all black. You have like everybody except for Ian Gillan and Don Airy were like wearing like sleeveless shirts, which I thought was kind of funny. And then
Yep.
but Don Airy had like this pinstripe button-up shirt, like he was like a school teacher or something. It's like, but I mean, it wasn't obviously not a fashion show, so it's like,
Yeah,
but they,
exactly. Who cares?
yeah, but it was cool to see them. So they came out and they rocked the place. They were like, I mean, I'm not going to go through everything, but as you would figure, they did the standards. They opened with Highway Star, which was awesome.
Yep.
Pictures of Home, Bloodsucker, Demon's
Oof.
Eye.
That's a good start so far.
Right. So right up to there, you're thinking like, okay, how does Ian Gillan, like 72, 73 years old, deal with all this stuff? He still sounds really great.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that I was kind of like impressed by was is like he's definitely like an old guy.
Yeah,
You
oh
know what I
sure.
mean? But he doesn't try to hit those like high notes, but occasionally he will go into the higher register and he really nails it. Like some of these guys, like you'll hear like occasionally and they sound like they're struggling to kind
Mhm.
of like do what they used to do, or they will very obviously like tune down or I don't know, whatever. And it's just like, and he's still like, I mean, he's not singing Child in Time anytime soon, but it was like really good. And the parts that he modified for his current voice, for his current vocal abilities, was like not like it. I mean, it worked. You know what I mean? It didn't sound like we got cheated. Like
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he pretty much sounded like the way he did like through the 80s. Like his voice is, kind of retained that kind of like, because in the early 70s he had that kind of like younger, like, voice and everything, and then it kind of got a little bit more like, it
Yeah,
changed a
matured.
little
Yeah.
bit in the 80s or whatever, and it hasn't seemed to have like really gone downhill, except that he can't, like, hit those high notes anymore, or he won't try.
Hmm.
But I mean, occasionally here or there he will. So they did sprinkle in some newer songs, and by that I mean they, sometimes I feel like screaming from Perpendicular, which was
Yep.
like 96.
Hmm.
um, Uncommon Man from Now What from 2013,
Yeah, that's a good one. Nice tribute to
which,
John Lord.
yeah, and they dedicated it to John Lord, and he, like, he kissed the sky and, like, peace
Oh,
sign and everything, and not as much explosive applause as I would have liked, but I made enough
you're a little
noise for.
disappointed. Like, hey,
Well, I mean, everybody was like, "Yay!" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Yeah, come on!" It's like,
stand up, you assholes.
"Yeah, come on, John Lord, for Christ's sake!"
Yeah,
But
right. I mean, you'd think that the place would just to bring the house down. I mean, it's been almost 10 years, but well,
yeah,
so 7 years or whatever. But still,
they did "Lazy,"
oh
um, "Time for Bedlam" off the new album,
yeah, yeah.
"Perfect Strangers," "Space Truckin'," "Smoke on the Water," of course, and then the encores were "Hush" and "Black Night."
Hmm. Not didn't save smoke for the encore, huh?
No, no, they closed out the main set with it.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. I feel like for a Deep Purple show, first of all, they played really well. I mean,
Yeah,
of course they all sound great. They're all great musicians still to this day. You could tell that they're like having a good time. They sprinkled in, like, I don't know if you could say really the hits. I mean, Deep Purple really didn't have like a ton of hits if you think about it. Like, but I mean, the more popular songs, like, I mean,
yeah.
everybody knows, like,
The songs that are hits with the fans, anyway.
yeah, Highway Star, Smoke on the Water. But I mean, there's some deep cuts in there. I mean, like, I don't know, Demon's Eye. I mean, I was kind of impressed with Bloodsucker.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
I
great.
I
Yeah,
wasn't expecting to hear any of that stuff. I mean, you're not going to hear anything from like come and taste the band, but
come. Well, that would be something.
but yeah, there were a couple of things that were like missing, like Woman from Tokyo. I think Peter mentioned that, like, they didn't do that, but it's but mostly there was a good set, and they played for, like, I think a good couple of hours anyways. Like, it was a
Yeah,
pretty long show, and there wasn't a lot of like BS in the middle, you know what I mean? Like, a little bit of stage banter, not a lot of extended jamming. Like, when they left
yeah.
for the encore, they didn't leave you waiting for 20 minutes or whatever. Like, they were really to the point.
They
So
gotta get to bed. I mean,
yeah. Now, the best thing about Ian Gillan, which I tried to capture on video but I missed it, was is like he just doesn't have he does not have moves anymore. Like, he used to be like, when he was in his 20s, like super cool, whipping his hair around and doing the bongos and everything, and now he just does like the Elaine dance from Seinfeld. Like, he just, like, he goes off to the yeah, here it is. You got it pulled
I
up.
figured I'd have a video of video reference of Elaine dancing,
So if
just
anybody's
for our
watching this,
YouTube listeners. I don't know if any of our international listeners are not familiar with Elaine Bennis from Seinfeld, but
but this is the infamous Elaine dance from Seinfeld, which that's pretty much what Ian Gillan was.
I can't wait.
I mean, it wasn't that exaggerated, but
But
he
yeah,
was
he's just got the
basically.
thumbs going out. He's just doing the thumbs, right?
Well, you know what? And again, I have to give, like, I got to give Peter credit for this one. He was coming up with a lot of these funny observations. He's like, because Gillen would go in the background and he'd be doing this kind of stuff, and he's like. He looks like that. He looks like that goofy old uncle that's like at the party, and he's like trying to be cool and dance, and it's just like, yep, that's him.
Well, he was never much of a dancer.
But I mean, even his moves on stage when he used to like shake the maracas or the tambourine, or like,
Yeah,
do the bongos or whatever. I mean, at least he looked really cool. And now he just basically looked like, that crazy old uncle, like, doing a little dance or whatever. Um, but My favorite part, and that's not to like definitely not knocking him at all, because I mean
Oh
it's like
no.
it was still like it was just funny because it's just like you could just tell like I mean he's my dad's age. I mean I'm just picturing
Yeah,
my
yeah,
dad going out there and doing the same thing, and so it's just like yeah you can't help it. And he doesn't give a shit anyways. He's Ian Gillan, like we
yeah.
talked
I
about.
mean,
He can
he's
do whatever he wants.
what does he have to prove?
But my one of my favorite parts was I think it was during Lazy. They were doing the whole intro. So he comes out from the middle, like the drums, as you can see, if you're looking at the pictures, are on the left, keyboards on the right, and then Morrison Glover on either side. So he comes out, and then all of a sudden he stops, and he looks around, he puts his finger up, like, well, wait a minute, and then he just turns around and like hobbles away, and then he comes back like a couple of minutes later, holding his microphone, like, well, can't sing without this. It's like and we were just cracking up because it's just like he is literally like just this like goofy old man on stage, like, oh, I got my microphone,
That's great. It's. I mean,
But it was
that's
like it
it's
was a
good.
lot of fun. It
It
was a lot of
sounds
fun.
great and relaxed, and just
It
it's good
was.
that they're not taking themselves so seriously and just having a fun time. It's awesome.
No, yeah, it was like it was a lot of fun. It wasn't like like if you paint that kind of picture, it can sound one of two ways. Like, oh man, this is pathetic, and they're dragging it on for too long, and they're making fools of themselves, or like what you just said, they're having fun and it's relaxed and it's like a fun show. And it was definitely the second one. Like there was no air of just like, oh man, they gotta hang it up. They're just embarrassing themselves. Like not at all.
Yeah,
I would definitely recommend going. It was definitely worth, or you're gonna have fun
I'll
rather.
take your recommendation. I think I'll go this Friday,
and and meet the band.
and I'm gonna meet the band. I'm
You're gonna
very
go
very
meet the
excited.
band.
I've got my behind me my LP of the Butterfly Ball. I'm gonna bring that and see if Roger will sign it for me.
That is like full circle for you. You're gonna be so excited.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. But apparently, I guess they'll sign. So our friend on Twitter that I was asking them all these questions, like, well, what about this? What about that? Because, and they told me about what they did, what they brought, all that sort of stuff, what they're gonna sign. So I'm really, I needed pointers because I haven't. The last time I went to a VIP sort of thing was about 20 years ago, and my friend from that I grew up with, she knew the band, so uh, we got back there, and it was very like kind of like, well, whatever, and it wasn't very. This seems like it'll probably be a little more structured. Like we were just hanging out with a band, and it was a
Yeah,
blast. But this is it's going to be, I'm sure, a little more rigid. Like this is your time to get the sign. This is your time to take pictures. So I just wanted
yeah,
to make sure I did everything correctly.
yeah. VIP meet and greets have definitely changed in the past 20
Yeah.
years.
Yes.
I think that they started doing them as packages the way they do now, probably around that, probably around 20 years ago, if I'm not wrong. And it's definitely like evolved into like a thing now, like you said, very structured, and
That's
like
like a
all bands
yeah.
have them.
I'm sure it's just going to be a machine. They just want to get you in. They got your money. They're going to get you in. You'll have your time to chit chat with the band real quick. Get your stuff signed. Get you out. Try to sell you some more merchandise on the way out. Just get the whole group through.
But I feel like the scale that they're on now, and just kind of like the you know what I mean? Like they're not like super huge,
Right.
or
Right.
like right now. So I
It's
feel
not like
like it
yeah.
would be
It's not like
more
going to see
relaxed.
Taylor
Yeah,
Swift or something.
right.
It's
Like I'm sure there's going to be that structured component to it, but I bet you that like for your money, you'll have it'll probably be really relaxed.
being
For
able to meet those guys for even a second and just say thank you, and you shake their hands, or that alone is enough. Just having that memory, and that fond memory of being able to talk to them. If I could get my copy of Butterfly Ball signed, even the better.
Wow,
Gotta figure out. So hopefully our next episode we'll see it displayed up on the wall here.
jealous.
Well, that's if it all goes according to plan. So hopefully it
Well,
does.
I mean, I just feel too like this whole meet and greet thing is just like, I mean, if you really break it down, like you're paying like to meet for the experience to meet them. So it's just like anything else. If you're paying for a product or a service, it's just like if they're putting it out there, then they are being paid to give you their time. So they have to be just like a service industry, they have to be cordial. They have to give you the time. It's just like for your, you know, $200 or whatever. It's just like they shouldn't be rushing you through or
Right, right,
letting you leave with a bad picture or like you know, if they don't specify, like, I mean, if you're not going overboard and asking them to sign 20 things, but it's just like if you ask him to sign Butterfly Ball or like want a minute or two of his time to like tell him how much his music meant to you or whatever, then they should be given it, you know?
right. And I figure how many people ask him to sign Butterfly Ball merchandise probably doesn't happen. I'm sure it's happened, but probably doesn't happen every night that he's got people lined up to sign memorabilia from Butterfly Ball.
That would be really funny if you met him and he's like, "Ah, that's the fifth one this week." You know, you'd be like, "What?"
I'm so tired of all everyone wants to talk about is Butterfly Ball this, Butterfly Ball that.
That would be pretty wild if they did. Well, I mean, of
I'd be
all the
like, who are these
projects,
people? Give me their contact information. They need to
well,
listen to the show.
well, you figure with all the output that he's had over the years and the different projects, it's just
Oh
like
yeah, I'm sure people
I,
bring Nazareth albums and
yeah,
some of his other more obscure solo projects and
yeah. So I'm
who
wondering
knows.
like if like you know people, not everybody just latches onto that one, you know. So I'm sure that that would be really cool if he's just like, wow, I haven't like thought about this in years. You're like,
Yeah, it'd be great. I can't wait to report on it. But
yeah, can't wait to see your hear your report on it. So I unceremoniously like did not get to meet them because I didn't even think about getting a VIP
yeah,
package
it
or looking
actually
into it.
for the seats that were available, I was getting like, you know what, I might as well get pretty good seats. And then when I looked at the difference between that and the VIP package, I was like, gee, like seriously, could easily be the last time that this could be their last tour. It
Yeah,
could be the last time they play around here. It could be just my last time to ever see them. So like, why not just do that for that memory,
yeah.
Anyway, with that, we should really move on to what we came here to talk about today, which
Oh
has
boy.
nothing to do with this lineup of Deep Purple, other than, well, actually, no, none of them. Although Ian Pace did play with Glenn Hughes, and Glenn Hughes is on the Butterfly Ball. That's probably where the similarities end. But we're here to talk about Glenn Hughes, Play Me Out. And there's been a lot of fanfare leading up to this from me.
From you especially.
Um, so yeah, we talked a lot about in the Stormbringer and Come Taste the Band episodes about Glenn's obvious drug problems. When they got to Come Taste the Band, Glenn Hughes had like a lot of leftover songs that they didn't use for that album, and he was really messed up on cocaine at this point, and
Mm,
wasn't really as involved in Come Taste the Band as he could have been. There was, entire song where he didn't even play on because he had to run home to rehab. So he had some unused songs from those sessions. He tells these stories in his autobiography about Play Me Out, having this cocaine paranoia, running around with a knife into a field because he thought there was someone in the tall grass and he was going to try to kill them, and being at the point where this was the point for him where drugs stopped being fun and started um, really harming him. He became violent, and he said his only comfort was sitting in front of his Fender Rhodes playing piano and writing music. He said he was in a lot of pain when he wrote this album, and his intention was to push his musical abilities and see what he was capable of. He just wanted to show the world what he was capable of. He was upset that Lord and Pace had left from Deep Purple to form Pace Ashton Lord. There was a little animosity between him and John Lord because we talked about John Lord. John Lord ended up getting together with Hughes's ex-girlfriend, and they ended up getting married until she passed away, or until he passed away, I should say. Um, So Mick Jagger offers Hughes the use of his studio to record the album, so he does some of it in Mick Jagger's studio. Hughes said for the most part he was kind of on speed more than cocaine on this album, and that he wrote the album. He says he wrote it and recorded it in 10 days, and that he never slept once during that time. He recorded all the basic tracks, vocals, and backing vocals. Now, I don't know if that's a tall tale, but I'm sure there was not a lot of sleeping if he was on really hooked on speed. He says at one point he saw a nurse walk through the studio with a poodle, and he had a conversation with her, but of course that didn't happen because he was hallucinating. I think it's very interesting that he remembers those details. He said the strings on this album were recorded later in LA, and the album was mixed at Island Studio. And Hughes says he was totally out of it, but he's proud of the vocals that he did. He describes the album as being very painful for him. He says it was all about him breaking up with Vicky Gibbs and her leaving him for John Lord. It was about losing his girlfriend to his mentor. And then from the liner notes of the CD, they planned on releasing the song Smile as a single, and Smile didn't actually even end up making the album. It's just on the extras that are on the CD version. There's like 5 extra songs or something that are tacked onto the end, 2 that were recorded like the next year, and the rest of them were more contemporary to when that was released in the 90s. So he said he would get to the studio really early, record all the stuff so that when the musicians got there, they'd be ready to have stuff ready to go. Bulk of this album was recorded in 1976, but he took a long time to finish it up because of his drug problems and just getting everything together. Safari was the sister label to Oyster. That's the label that this came out on. So they created Oyster for Rainbow, and then they created the Safari sub-label that released this for some reason. Didn't release it originally on Purple Records. It was released in Germany first. That was considered the biggest market for ex-Purple members. And he says the album cost $16,000 to make. And even by 1977 standards, that was considered pretty much nothing. So it was made very, very cheaply. And Glenn Hughes says he recorded parts with like a drum machine, and then they added the other instruments afterwards. So it's kind of hobbled together, took a long time to develop and finally finish. And we're about to get into this album in a few minutes. On this album, we've got Mel Galley on guitar, who was formerly of Trapeze, Whitesnake, played with Cozy Powell. Bob Bowman on guitar, who played in a couple of bands, Love Machine and Sundance, neither of which I have ever heard of. Pat Travers is on guitar. Dave Holland on drums from Trapeze and Judas Priest. Terry Rowley on piano, who was with Glenn Hughes in the early version of Trapeze. He was also in a few other bands, including a band with Roy Woods. Robert Bailey on piano, who had played with a few bands, and then he's also played with Johnny Nash, Alice Cooper, and believe it or not, Billy Ray Cyrus. Ron Asprey on saxophone. He's been in a few bands, Backdoor and Megatone. Haven't really heard of them. He did session work for Spencer Davis Group, Cliff Richard, and he was on the David Coverdale's Whitesnake and Northwinds albums. Henry Lowther on trumpet, who played in a number of different jazz bands. Mark Nausif of Elf and Ian Gillan Band and Eddie Hardin's Wizards Convention on percussion. Liza Strike and Helen Chappell, who are both backup singers who worked with David Coverdale, Elton John, Pink Floyd. They were both on the Butterfly Ball. Joy Wright is the only other background vocalist, but she doesn't have any other compilations or any other credits other than Glenn Hughes compilations that include songs from this album. Then there are a bunch of other guys that arranged the horns. The strings are arranged by a guy who did work with Hans Zimmer, Bon Jovi, John Williams, Paul McCartney, Deep Purple, all sorts of stuff. And the engineer Brad Davis worked with a number of other groups, including doing work on Clear Air Turbulence, Trapeze, King Crimson, and Wang Chung, believe it or not. So a lot of people involved in making this album.
Yeah.
And here we go. We've got the art for the album is pretty understated, but you've got this picture of Glenn Hughes that looks like those pictures that we used to take in school, where there's be the picture of you looking sideways and then the picture of you facing the camera. So the version I had looked like this. It's just the one picture of Glenn Hughes. I think they just figured one picture of Glenn Hughes was enough.
That's the one I've always seen.
That's the one I've seen, but I guess originally it had the 2. And on the back, you've got 3 photos of Glenn Hughes sweating profusely. I don't know if he's.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's not like he's on stage. Maybe he's just like severely
on coke,
hopped up on coke or speed or something.
Oh my god! Yeah,
it's dripping with sweat.
Yeah, it's just this looks really it's a strange group of pictures.
It is really weird. Yeah, like the first picture up top is nice, but the other 2 are very odd. Got all the credits on the back. And then it says at the very end, it says, this album is dedicated to my best friend, Tommy Bolin, because Tommy Bolin would have passed away by this time. So very nice little dedication there. And that's kind of that as far as the album art goes. The photography for the cover was by Jared Mankiewicz, who I'm not familiar with. All right. That's the setup.
Yeah.
Are you ready to get space high?
Space.
Space. Are we ready? How are we going to rank these songs? Spaceships or?
Well, first of all, like where is the rest of our song ratings? Like,
Oh, I just filtered it so that you didn't have to scroll down so much because
okay.
we have so many songs in there now. So I just filtered it just by this album.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know. You rate them like by lines of coke. I don't know.
Seems disrespectful.
Speedballs.
Speedballs.
Bass strings. I don't know. Stevie Wonder glasses. I don't know. What do you want to rate them by?
I don't know. Let's see what grabs us when we start this off. The first song is a song called "I Got It Covered." And this is a very Stevie Wonder sort of sounding opening, just like the rest of the album. I love when that band kicks in. This is that guitar. The guitar sounds like Glenn Hughes, actually. The guitar's like. Listen to his vocals.
Yeah, you can tell that he was definitely. I mean, he wrote like I think except for one song on this album, he wrote all the music.
Yep.
Like the credits were that he wrote everything. So this is definitely like him just being like, "Yep, this is me."
And this song is like I love how it ping pongs back. It starts that really soulful, smooth opening. It sounds very much like the beginning of Songs in the Key of Life. And then it goes in this really super funky part and this really mellow chorus right here. I don't think I even really knew that the song was called I Got It Covered. I just figured it was called I Really Must Know. He says that nonstop.
Yeah.
A little like Tommy Bolin influence here. Sounds like a bridge section Tommy Bolin would have on one of his albums.
I find that like this song, just like the rest of the songs on the album, just sort of like kind of all over the place.
Yeah, the arrangements are very non-standard. And I think that's kind of what I like about it. It sometimes you just get bored with the same kind of verse chorus thing, and this song jumps. It's still got that soulful kind of poppy sound to it, but it's very different. And that's what really grabbed me about Clear Air Turbulence too. It was like this is not a song with like this is the A section, this is the B section. It's all these crazy things going on, but not so out there that you're like, oh, and then he goes into 13/8 time or whatever. It's not like a Dream Theater song. It's just a lot of different parts. It almost sounds like it could have been one of those medleys of 3 different songs on a Captain Beyond album, you know?
Yeah.
Not just one song. he just rips into it right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's basically like nobody holding him back now. So this is probably the most Glenn Hughes that you like he can be.
It's absolutely 100% unfiltered Glenn Hughes. I mean, I've seen him sing live where he's actually even more off the rails than this with his singing.
Yeah.
But for like a studio effort, this is like. And when I say Glenn Hughes is off the rails, I'm saying that in a good way. That's a composite for me. But as we've talked about many times, Glenn Hughes is not for everyone, and not everyone has the infinite patience for his antics as I do. You can hear that like clavinet in the left speaker there.
I think I've listened to that much clavinet in my life as I have in the past few weeks.
I know it's like we're doing a Stevie Wonder podcast. Oh, now it's moved over to the right speaker. Whoa. It's that same little. It's very like low in the mix. The mixing on this album is great. That's very interesting. It's got a, as far as that $16,000 thing, it does have a sound to it that the engineering wasn't quite up to the level of things we've heard previously, like Rainbow or any of the Deep Purple stuff. But it to me, this record has an atmosphere to it. You can just kind of, I always feel a certain way listening to this album. Like I can imagine myself being there in the late 70s listening to this in a smoke-filled, like dark bar or something.
Yeah, it's definitely. Yeah, it definitely evokes a mood. For me, it's not the same as yours. Like I'm afraid I don't like it as much. Well, the thing is that it's just like I mean, yeah, it is inexpensively produced,
Mm-hmm.
but it was also produced by Glenn Hughes, written by Glenn Hughes. So without really any outside songwriters or a producer or any kind of influences or anything to like really like rein him in or give him ideas. I mean, that's like a kind of a double-edged sword, I guess, because it's like if you don't have anybody else doing that, then you're getting 100% that artist. But
Yeah.
also without that, it's just kind of like any old idea that's in his that he wants to put on there just gets puked out onto tape. And I think that that's kind of like, I feel like that's what a lot of this album is. There are a lot of good moments and there are a couple of good songs, but I really like, I get fatigued by the production, like especially like the effects on his voice. Like I love Glenn Hughes and I love his voice, but it's just like,
He's kind of got the Warhorse effect going on this song, but it
yeah,
works much better than that effect. But
oh yeah, but I mean overall, I mean just the fact of like how he sings, it's like more like out there than
mm-hmm.
less rock and everything, but more soulful and out there and experimental than the other projects. But with like all this slapback reverb and flange and effects and chorus and everything on his voice, it's just that like after a while, it's like I can't listen. I can't listen anymore. And the arrangements, I think, are just too like in this. Like if we're talking about this song, the arrangements just it goes on for too long for me. The song goes on for too long, and the arrangements just kind of all over the place. And I don't know. It's for me, it's different than like a long arrangement from Captain Beyond because like if we're talking about like arrangement like that, because like in like Captain Beyond song, and like to me it made sense. Like I could see where it was going, and this one it just seems like he just kept like I don't know where he was going.
mm-hmm.
So um, yeah, so um, yeah, really three for me on this song.
3
I
for you.
yeah, I mean it's just like it's okay.
I'm giving it a 4. I dig what he's doing there. I like that he's, while I agree, I think he is, everybody has some benefit from being reined in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how good you are, there's certain things you do that could work to be reined in. I love the experimental nature of this album. I like he's just kind of doing what he wants to do. He's not worrying. He's not bringing any of this to song doctors to be like, how can I make this a radio hit? You know, he just wants, he's making songs and getting them out there. So that's why I give it a 4.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next up is the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time to get space high. Speaking of out there.
Your favorite. Oh my God. Yeah. This song is out there like no other.
I'm sure it's tethered to a spaceship orbiting Pluto. The bass now sounds like Glenn. It's like all the instruments sound like him.
It's like, let me make all the instruments sound like my voice.
I love the way the song starts off though. Like when it really kicks in.
32 saucers over the land. Should we catch them?
I think another thing too is like this song, like most of the other ones, just they're not very up tempo either.
No, everything's kind of chill on this album. So he's talking about 32 saucers over the land and asking about these aliens that come out of the saucers. Are they going to be friendly? Are they going to be enemies? I'm not a lyric guy. I don't usually listen to the lyrics, but
Me neither.
for the first time ever, I started listening to the lyrics on this.
Whoever's playing guitar is just working the wah on this song.
Yeah, I guess it's Mel Gallagher.
That's funny that this is basically like a trapeze reunion.
Yeah.
Like Glenn Hughes with his old bandmates is like a backing band.
He's like, it's a trapeze reunion, except this time you do everything that I say. I don't need any input from any of you. Play this, play this. Good. There it is. Space high.
And he says it a few more times too.
My favorite is when he just goes, space. Right there. And then he's like, oh,
Yeah, see, that there was just like a little too much for me.
the growling.
Yeah, like, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, like, I don't know, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe I used to love it, but now I heard it recently and just now, and I'm just kind of like, dial it back. Oh, God, stop it. I don't know why it's rubbing me the wrong way so much. It just kind of is.
Some of the strings.
I think it's just so... I'm starting to get annoyed, you know, because I just feel like Glenn's just like, let's just throw everything we can in here into this song. Like, strings, wah-wah, me going, Spurs! You know, like... like, you know, his Cookie Monster, Stevie Wonder vocals.
He does vacillate between both. And I know I've always had a superhuman love for anything that Glenn Hughes does, so. But I can completely understand any criticism of it.
Well, and I'm saying all this with, like, knowing damn well that this is one of my favorite vocalists and bass players ever.
Yes.
I just don't, like, you know, there's always going to be something in somebody's catalog that you don't really care for as
Well,
much.
there was a huge black hole after this. I mean, he got back with Trapeze, but things kind of fizzled out. And he really didn't do much until he joined Black Sabbath briefly, very briefly.
Yeah.
So, like, he was just so messed up on drugs for so long. And thank God he got himself out of that spiral, because it just makes you wonder what could he have... What could this album have been had he been a little more together? And what could the following 15 years have been? And Glenn Hughes says in interviews that he doesn't remember the 80s. And
Wow.
I'm sure that's an exaggeration, but probably not a huge exaggeration.
No.
You can listen to those Stevie Wonder records, huh?
That's my best. He just mentions, Dad, give me some more Stevie Wonder records. I don't even know what he said right there, but
See, I think that maybe it's the knowledge too that he was just so messed up during this record that he's just like, I mean, like some of my favorite albums were like
oh
recorded
sure,
when the band was like so out of their minds on, drugs and alcohol and everything. But then there's sometimes it just doesn't really, I don't know, come together, I think.
yeah.
But that's not,
I don't think I knew until very recently that. I mean, listening whenever this release came out, I think it was 95. Yeah, 95. So I got it then. And what was that? How long ago was that? 25 years ago?
yeah.
1990? Jesus. So yeah, I mean so I've been listening to this album for 25 years. I don't think I realized until the last 6 months even how messed up he was when he made it.
Yeah.
I knew obviously of his problems, but I never really thought about it. I just kind of, to me, this was a really great record to put on, very atmospheric, having it in the background, just kind of setting that mood. It wasn't something I ever really listened to critically until we started doing this.
Mm-hmm.
It was more
Yeah,
just
same.
an album I always enjoyed listening to.
Yeah, same. Well, yeah, I think I said everything I needed to say during the song, so another 3 from me.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it another 4. I like Space High. I'm sorry.
I know
You
you
know
do.
you know what? No, I'm not sorry. I like Space High.
You don't have to be sorry. I just feel bad. I'm giving Glenn all these low ratings. I can't, like, I'm even thinking of dropping some of them down to like 2.5, but I feel like that's just mean.
No, dude, don't be mean. It's not mean. Just say what you feel about it. I'm not
But again, I think this just the tempo is just too slow,
yeah.
and the arrangements are just too like they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
always
think.
think what Rye from Sabbath Bloody Podcast would think if he was listening to this. He'd probably be giving them all 1s and 1.5. So please feel free to don't worry about my feelings. I was not involved in making this album. I
No, I
just
know. I
I
mean,
love it.
you remember the "Who Do We Think We Are" episode, right?
I do. Well, you betrayed me. No, it doesn't matter.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of you. Um, no, it's yeah. I'm just like they're not. So far, the first 2 songs, they're not solid 3s. They're shaky 3s.
There you go. They're like 2.75s, really. They're just like 2.76s. You're rounding them up.
Mm.
Okay. All right. Next up, we got "It's About Time." A little bit of a tempo change for you, at least for the beginning part of the song.
Yeah, I always thought the beginning of the song was cool.
A lot of left and right panning that I really didn't notice before. I always really liked that transition.
Actually, I did too.
It's like unexpected. This reminds me of that. I forget which song it is on Share Kazoo, but
This reminds me, like, with the acoustic guitar, when he goes into the verse, it's a more polished version of something that he would have done in Trapeze.
yes, yep. Yeah, this is the first one where I think you actually hear some trapeze. All of these songs have very, very short amount of lyric, a very small amount of lyrics in them. And very like not a lot of lyrics. This part right here reminds me of Holy Man for some reason. Does it come to me, woman, every night? Sounds like Call to Madonna to send me a sign. You know, sounds like kind of that same rhythm.
Well, he did write the other song too.
but again, the lyrics are probably not his strongest, but I'm
Yeah,
not a
but
lyric guy, and when you're Glenn Hughes, it doesn't freaking matter.
no, I'm just listening to his voice.
His voice is just incredible.
I mean, I love the arrangement and how the song builds during the verses. I think it would have been better if he just got those effects off of his voice. I don't know.
It
I
sounds like
just
a chorus on this one, like a chorus effect.
Yeah, but it's just like all over his voice on this
Yeah.
album, and I think it just kind of ruins it because his voice is so great. He doesn't need all that crap.
Yeah, like John Lennon used to put tons of effects on his voice because he didn't like the sound of his voice, but Glenn Hughes likes the sound of his voice. I think, like you said, he was probably just in the studio, and like sometimes you get carried away. You're like, "Ooh, I got all these new effects, so I have to use them," or "I got all these new synthesizers, so I'm gonna put them in every song." That's totally normal. Just love this piano part here.
You see him walking around the lounge with the spotlight on him. He's like, "Anybody here from out of town?" While he's throwing roses out to the audience, and I don't know. But no, this is really great. Kind of like, jazz lounge piano solo.
I think they've done a couple more re-releases of this album too. I would wonder what it would be as a remix or remastered, if they toned down some of these effects on the vocals.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's when he belts it out, it's almost like it's a little overloaded, like the vocals are clipping almost a little bit, or it's causing the effect to clip a little bit.
I like how this ends.
No.
Well, that's good stuff. I like that because that kind of like the song followed. No, it actually didn't follow a formula. It stayed on track. The only thing that was weird about it was that beginning, that intro was just like it didn't come back or fit anywhere else in the song. It was just like
I like it though, because I like when they take you in this one direction. Oh, here's I got this idea in my head. This is what the song's gonna be. Nope, not even close. It was this like lounge. I was thinking it was gonna be this really upbeat, fast tempo, funky rock sort of song.
Yeah, so it was like this kind of like disco like intro, and then it just like turned into like this kind of jazzy ballad type thing, which was like, but it didn't like reference it anywhere else in the song, or it didn't come back. It didn't take any left turns, so that I didn't mind so much. I like that, is that it just kind of tricked you, and then
it was cool because I think if you had some song doctor come in, they'd be like, "Oh, you're gonna lose that part." I like that I like the independence of this album. The fact that it in parts is a detriment, and it's causing some of the reasons that you don't like it as much, but it's also a benefit because he's not knuckling under some producer or whatever. He's just saying, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want on this album and take it or leave it. All right, so what do you think about It's About Time?
It's about time that I rated a song higher than a 3. So wah, wah.
Nice segue.
Well, I really like everything about this one. Despite the fact that like the vocal effects are still bothering me, I'm going to give it a 4.
Yeah, I would hang with a 4 on this one too. I don't think it's
like
quite enough for a 4.5, but I do really like the song. All right, next, speaking of changing it up, we're gonna have another little bit of a change here with our next song, which is called LA Cutoff.
The first Glenn Hughes solo song I think I ever heard.
Really?
Ladies and gentlemen, I present the Los Angeles cutoff.
I like that intro. It's like that's what British people think American people sound like. Reminds you. You ever watch the show Jeeves and Wooster?
No.
I'm always like, there's this one episode where they go to America and they meet some Americans, and it's all British people playing the Americans. It's probably filmed in England, and they're like, "Hey, I think that ginger over there is taking the car." Oh, that's clearly a British guy doing an American accent.
Yeah.
I always think of that when I hear the beginning of this song. Sound almost like a Billy Cobham's sort of drum thing he did there.
I don't know. Coming back strong.
Coming back strong. Strong. Little bell. Ding dong, ding dong, ding ding.
I like how he tries to do the most 70s bass over here when he's like, "Brrr."
Yep. It's great.
I always like this part.
Great horns on this too.
Like, what?
He's off the rails and I friggin' love it. This is a really cool part.
Yeah, they could have.
I want to see you dance.
It's like he's treating it like a live show. I want to see you dance. I'm glad there's nobody here.
Well, except, you know, a nurse with a
The poodle.
elephant or whatever.
He wants to see the nurse and the poodle dance.
Now listen to this. Coming back strong. Coming back strong. Coming back strong. Coming back strong.
He talks here about 3 years gone, coming back strong. Like, what's he talking about?
I don't know. Because this was not his comeback album.
No, and he hadn't.
He hadn't gone away yet.
Deep Purple hadn't even been gone for that long.
Everybody loves you. Everybody leaves you. They all leave you sometimes.
One friend of the city, now ain't that a pity?
Don't need us this time. So follow me, please.
Follow me, babe.
Coming back strong. Coming back strong. No. Coming back strong.
So this would have been the song that closed out the first side of the album, I think.
Wow.
Do I have that right? No, the next song would have been, sorry.
Oh, okay. So I can't remember. There was like, I think that this might have been on like the Deep Purple family like album or
Oh,
something like
yeah.
that, because there was like, basically it was like, and that's probably what got us started on thinking about all these offshoots of Deep Purple being like the Deep Purple family, because it's like they have like you know, the bands that were before and after and stuff, because that's where I've heard like the one song, like the one Billy Cobham song that Tommy Bolin was on, or like or this, or um, like episode 6 or whatever. It's just like all the different bands that I had heard related to Deep Purple were on this like compilation. And I remember this just being on there um, before I got this CD. But despite everything that I had said about like all like the first couple of songs kind of being all over the place, whatever, it works on this song. Like I really like it, and his like the chorus vocals are just like really make me laugh.
Coming back strong.
Yeah, like I mean, this one he just like I don't know. He whatever he was going for, he nailed it. So it's just like and I like listening to it. And even though it seems like it would be kind of a all over the place type of song, it kind of has a structure to it. So
Yeah,
and I like the performance and everything. So definitely like 4 from me.
I will give it a 4 as well. And I
4.
think it's yeah, everything is very loose on this. Just there'll be it's not like extended jams either. It's just weird little instrumental segments, and then you hear like dong dong ding dong 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 ding dong in the background. It's just like he
Little
just like
touches,
he
yeah.
just like at the beginning of every verse, I'm just gonna throw that in there, and you just whatever he felt like doing. It's just kind of like I said, it's kind of free. It's freeing to hear that and not hear someone that's so hung up on this is what management wants, this is what the producer wants. It's just this is what freaking Glenn Hughes wants and nobody else.
Right.
That might be part of the problem with this album's success, as we'll get into later. It was
Mm.
what, but you know, that's to be commended. He wasn't going for like, oh, this is going to be this huge commercial success. He was just like, this is what I'm sure he would have loved that, but this is just
Yeah.
what he wanted. This is the album he wanted to make. Well, the next song is called Well. Beginning of this always reminds me of like one of those Black Sabbath instrumentals.
That's the other thing too. See, it's just like these guitars, they're just saturated in that weird, I don't know. Would have liked it better if they were just cleaner.
Trying to think of what's on. It might be like a chorus effect on those too.
And I mean, I like chorus effects. That's the thing, is like they don't usually bother me, but I don't think it was used to great effect on this album. And plus the playing is a little, I don't know, not tight enough for me here.
I kind of like that. I kind of like that it's almost like a aimless little noodling sort of thing.
I don't want to hear noodling.
I like this thing at the end. A subtle little melody line in the background. And that's how he ends the first side.
Interesting little thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that he played all the guitars on it,
I would assume so.
if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it was just like, yeah, I don't, you're like, oh, I can't take it.
My eyes just hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I say it with all the love for Glenn Hughes, but it's just like I don't know if it was just I mean, I'm all for like things being loose and sloppy and experimenting and stuff, but it's just like again, I don't think that this song like that particularly worked too well. Like probably maybe could have gone somewhere with it. Extent and see, this is something too. It's like what was it like a couple of minutes or like a minute or something? And it's
Minute
like
and a half. Minute and 28 seconds.
everything else has been drawn out to like 5 minutes or whatever, and then he could have explored this and maybe made it a little bit something better, and instead it was just kind of like just kind of noodling, and I wasn't crazy about the effects or like the production on it. So like, but it's still like kind of a nice little thing, but still 2.5 for me.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna give it a 3. I think it's not a super remarkable. I mean, I don't even know if you'd call it a song. It's more just like a little instrumental interlude more than anything else. But now I can't see out of my glasses. Okay. Next song up we have is Solution, not Solution, Solution.
Ah, Glenn.
It's like a blood, sweat, and tears sounding intro here. A little pop on the little pop and hammer on the G string. Just warming up for the B-side here. Another kind of fake out intro.
What do you got? It looks like trouble. Easy on one side, the other's a wise ride. Seems to be walk to the right, walk to the right, walk to the left, walk to the left, walking down Mid Street.
Like kind of the back and forth with the backup singers. Reading through most of these lyrics, though, it's just kind of like I have no idea what he's talking about. Just
You know what I mean? Destination.
something just struck me as funny. He says no confusion, and the background singers no confusion. They says no illusion. They say no illusion, and he says changing fusion, and then they just go ooh, like they didn't know what he said.
Oh, I wish that I caught that too because it sounds really funny.
I think they'll do it again next time. I've never heard it that way before, but it just popped in my head right now.
Oh.
I love those background singers. I like to sing the instrumental part of it too. Shut it. Sucker for horns and background singers. Okay, here we go. Listen to the chorus then. Oh, they're not doing it this time. They remember it this time.
Now they remembered.
I remember what he said last time.
Woo!
It's kind of an interesting part of the arrangement is that it was a call and response the first time, Although they just said ooh on the third one. This time they're singing along with him, which is kind of cool. I like when they don't just stick to a very... It sounds very organic, not so cut and paste.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's one thing that the album has going for it, is it's like very organic. I think that's a good word for it.
These horn arrangements are pretty sick, honestly. This guy horns are Ron Aspery arranged the horns. Nice job, Ron.
Hmm.
All right, No Solution.
Hmm. Well, I think just another. I'm like just another meandering song, in my opinion. 3.
I'm gonna hit it up with a 4. I just totally agree with what you're saying. I'm a sucker for that kind of. I'm a sucker for the horns and the background vocals. Just
Well, they were good. I mean, that's why I didn't rate it any lower. You know, is like when we were listening to it together, I was like, yeah, I like the call and response, and I like the arrangement a little bit. It's just like just drags. You know, for me, it's dragging. It's too long.
yeah, I
Like
can see
every
that.
every song just feels like it's taking forever to listen to. Like I don't know, I feel like when we're having like side conversations inside the song, it's just like then you know it's too long.
Yeah,
But
that's fair enough.
yeah.
All right, next up, Your Love Is Like a Fire. Another kind of typical Hughesian intro.
Hughesian.
It's kind of Stevie Wonder. I mean, obviously it's all Stevie Wonder, but this one lyrically and melodically sounds more Stevie Wonder than a lot. Like I could totally see this being an outtake from Songs in the Key of Life. Only a minute into the song, he's almost done with the lyrics. Again, the effects on the vocals.
Yeah, that's all I can hear.
I do feel like it's too much.
I really do like this part. I've always liked this part.
Yeah, this is a great chorus section.
The like what is a keyboard or synth under it?
It's got to be some sort of synth. It's like a Moog or something. This is a great little instrumental section in the beginning, in the middle of the song here.
I do really like this one. I like how all the keyboards and everything build on each other.
It's
in this.
very dramatic.
See that fades in like that? I love that.
There's one part where I think he does on the bass, he goes doo-doo-doo, 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 when they're coming out of that part. It's awesome. When you listen to just the synth part of this, it sounds like something out of the Butterfly Ball.
Oh, it does, yeah.
Like one of those instrumental segments. It's much lower in the mix here, though. Nice.
We're only halfway through the song.
A little more than that, but yeah, it's another very long song. 6.5 minutes long. This verse part has like kind of 4 verses.
Yeah.
All in a row. At the beginning of the song, and then at this part of the song, it does all 4 of them again. And it's the exact same lyrics, which to me is, and I believe after this they go back into the instrumental section. It's almost kind of like they could have cut this second part out, or spaced out half of them at this part and half of them at the other part, so it doesn't go on quite as long. Then we go right back into this.
But no, he's added the sax on it.
Nothing wrong with adding a sax solo.
No, but it's like, it's not just the same old thing. He's kind of building on it instead of it just being the same section as before.
And this sax would have been played by Ron Asprey, who did the horn arrangement, so he's also a great sax player. Here it is. And the strings come in here.
I really love those strings. Worked really well on this.
I think this is where that bass run comes in. Oh, that was just kind of like the octave thing. Still good.
The disco octave thing, yeah.
No problem with that. Maybe it's on this repetition right here. No, I don't know when the hell it is apparently. Or maybe it's during the fade out. That's the perfect time to throw one of those in. Right here. Yeah, there it is. Perfect. I should have known it was on the fade out. It's so great doing a high bass fill with the songs fading out. Pure class. You can't beat that. I used to do it all the time, and probably mostly influenced by that song.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that song's kind of a mixed bag. I really like those instrumental segments, the strings. The dramatic builds of them. But I feel those verse segments go on a little. They're very down key, and could easily stand to be half as long as they are.
You see, and that's the thing where I think like, another songwriter or producer would have been able to come in and like, not only like adjust the sound, like those harsh, like it's really almost harsh sounding like vocals in the verse, but also like the length and the arrangements of the songs.
Yeah.
Could have been like way shorter, and like, I mean, not to make it more of like effective to be like a radio hit or anything like that, but just to be more like, just more pleasant to listen to. So as much as I don't like the arrangement as much, or the Just the vocal effects actually weren't as bad during the bridge part and everything before the instrumental and everything, but during the verses they just were like, I don't know, you know what I mean? It's just
Yep.
like you hear like a song like when he does like This Time Around, and it's like way different than what he does here, you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
just him at a piano just belting it out, and it's like, so he can do it, but I think it was just like, I don't know, not as great production. But anyways, despite all that, I really like what the song has to offer, so I'm gonna throw it a 4.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing. I could, with the proper arrangement, I could easily bump this one up to a 4.5.
Mm.
But
Yeah, I think the long, I was gonna say the longevity of the song, but the length, the longness, and
the longness.
the longness of the arrangement, and the vocal effects during the verse kind of kill it for me a little bit.
I'm looking at the playtime for this album. So the playtime for the original release is 42 and a half minutes. And the Captain Beyond album, I think, was like 35 minutes.
Jeez.
So, albums were really short back then. So this was kind of a lengthy album for the time, for the style of music anyway. I think if you had shaved this album down to 36 minutes, or 38 minutes maybe, and
Yeah.
cut back on some of that extra, some of these songs could have a little bit more pop and leave you wanting a little bit more. But this is being said by somebody who loves this album, so
Hmm.
don't want to. I'm just thinking of ways to make it even better, but this album's 42 years old, so
Yeah, I think you're 40 something odd years late.
yeah.
That's okay. That's okay.
All right. The next song we have up is called Destiny. Another kind of sounds like the beginning of that song well. Except it's
Because a trapeze kind of beginning to it.
yeah.
I mean, you probably figures
sorta
because,
sound.
probably because the guys are playing on it from trapeze probably
Makes sense.
as well. Kind of like that riff, like Forever Man from Eric Clapton, like in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
What you done, yeah. You think you're the only one.
Kind of like the direction it went in. This is kind of nice groove going on.
Yep.
See, now I feel like the effects on his voice aren't as strong on this song. I feel like they dialed them back, or there's nothing on it at all.
This is my destiny. Wow, he's really just
Hear the bass? Oh
still
shit!
going. Yeah,
You love it so much.
I do.
Uh,
I would love to hole up in my studio here for 10 days, just like pissing in a bucket, not even showering, and just come up, just emerge up into the main floor after 10 days and say, "Behold, I've created this album." I don't care what's wrong with it. I don't care any of the problems. This is what I've got, and you all can suck it.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, that little.
I feel like the guitar was playing and the bass was just like, oh no, you're not stealing focus. In the background.
I know I've dominated every second of this album, but I'm not gonna let the guitar player come in 20 seconds of solo and go unchecked. I like this part here.
This is not
The bass is out of control on this song. It's amazing. Like what producer would let a bass player get away with doing that? You know, like it has to be, he had to have total control because it's like, I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know if the Glenn Hughes playing that bass part knew he was recording.
Probably not.
He's like, just strumming away with the pick. He's still going too. He's not laying down a foundation. He's just... It's pretty amazing that he could have composed these songs this way, and like, you know, he did all the backing tracks rather, and then came in afterwards and laid down the vocals, did string arrangements and horn arrangements and everything after the fact. It's amazing that he was able to hold any of it together, really, because it's so loose and freeform.
Yeah.
I can imagine it must have been a challenge for the people coming in and putting the backing vocals and okay, this time what do we do? Okay, this time you want us to sing with you? Okay. Like,
Well,
I wonder how much direction was going into that and from who.
That's why that one line they went, "Whoo!"
They just looked at all three of them and looked at each other. Whoo! Like, I guess.
That's great. Keep it.
It was great. You know, it worked out well.
Cut, print it.
All right, what do you think of Destiny?
Now I'm just like getting amused with all these songs. They're like, I'm having a fun time listening to them.
It is. It's great. It's great.
You know what? I feel like there's a lot that went into that, so I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
All right, I'm
because I do like it.
I'm sticking with my 4 on that one. I like it. I like what it has created. And that brings us to only one song left. That is the album closer, I Found a Woman. Yet another mellow Glenn Hughes crooning opening. It's like every one of these songs has this like kind of lengthy intro or
again, another like kind of coast to coast feel.
mm-hmm.
This is really good.
I love the string arrangement here.
I just like the
big-
melody of the song.
It's a great melody. He belts out the album title right there. It saves it for the very end.
Oh,
Play Me
yeah.
Out. I found a woman to play me out.
And it's kind of like a little more restrained. Like the bass isn't doing anything wacky.
After the last song, anything is restrained. I could play a Stu Ham song and you'd be like, ah, very understated bass line on this song.
You could do like all bass sweep arpeggios, and it would be less busy than what we heard earlier. But I like it kind of has this like kind of dark sounding like,
Yeah.
and then it like raises up, you know. Like I don't know what it is, like the like what key or whatever, but it kind of switches to this kind of like almost like a minor dark sounding thing, and then it just kind of like goes into this like really uplifting part where we're in now. You know what I mean?
Yep. I love those little stabs on the strings. It just makes it. This is one of the songs that probably has more of a concise arrangement, being that it's
Yeah.
only 4 minutes even, and the first almost minute is just that intro.
And like the last two songs, especially this one, it sounds like he really dialed back the vocal effects, which I think like would have been way better if he had done that on the whole album. That's makes this song really great to listen to. Aside from the arrangement, the music, everything. So
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, I found a woman, like four bases for me.
All right.
I liked it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 4 too. I toyed with a 4.5, but
I mean, I really like Glenn Hughes ballads, you know, or slow songs or
yeah, he can do a lot with. I mean, he can do a lot with anything, but with that particular style of song, he can really just own it.
mm-hmm.
There we have it. The
Play
Glenn
Me.
Hughes "Play Me Out" album.
It is played out.
We have played it out.
We
Now
have.
on the CD release, there's an additional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 songs, but we're not getting to those today. We're kind of staying strict to the original albums as they were released.
So, despite how much you liked it, and we both fell inside of a well, you obviously liked it more than I did, but we fell into like almost like a 0.44 variance in how much we liked it.
Which is one of
Um,
our bigger variances. Aside from Who
um,
Do We Think We Are, and it's tied with Stormbringer.
and Sheer Kazoo.
Sure, because it was
Well,
it was a little closer, but not by
yeah, we
much.
shouldn't count it. But yeah, so this is like firmly in the, you know, like I'm like 3.44, you're 3.89.
Mm-hmm.
So with a combined total of 7.33, which you always like, your good ratings always make these things like swing, give them the upswing here. To put that in perspective, though, it's like similar rating to Fireball.
Huh?
Combined rating, that is.
Yeah.
Which again, I know that like you can only know so much from numbers, but it's kind of interesting to see stuff like that, like, you know, where we would rate like solo releases and stuff like this in comparison to like the early, like just like classic Purple albums, and be like, wow, I like this one slightly more than Fireball. But there's a lot that goes into it.
It's a go-to album for me. Something if I'm in the right mood, I'll always put it on.
Yeah, I'll say that the last couple have not. Actually, the last few have not been
for
for
you.
me.
Yeah.
Like this one, like even the first Rainbow album. Like I listen to Rainbow Rising. You know, I listen to
Yeah.
Rising. I don't listen to the first Rainbow album. And after like kind of dissecting it, I understand more why. You know, it's like it's kind of funny, like to think about when we sit here and we listen and we dissect everything. It's like I kind of get to the root of why I like or don't like as much like
Yeah.
certain albums, or why I don't go to them as much, because you don't really sit there and think about it and pull it apart. So, but yeah,
All
I
right.
think that I think that Glenn Hughes' performance, like his vocal performance, I don't know, I've heard him do better vocals, although he's got some great moments.
Oh, sure. But yeah, but it's all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's production notwithstanding.
Right.
But anyways,
All right. Glenn Hughes, play me out.
we
Okay, so that's Glenn Hughes, play me out. So after this album was released, so they finished recording this album. Glenn Hughes gets on a plane with Terry Rowley from Heathrow to Chicago, and he said he was coming down off of speed, and he got off the plane because he wanted at one of the connection flights because he wanted a sandwich. So he leaves the plane, and he had the masters for the album on the plane, and oops, the plane took off without him. Luckily, Terry Rowley was there and kind of kept the masters safe, but he almost lost the entire album.
it would have gone the way of the concerto.
Yes. Yes, it would. So the album gets some mixed reviews. It got some rave reviews in the Sounds magazine from Jeff Barton, which we'll get to in a minute. Diehard fans of Deep Purple just did not get this album, did not understand it, and it didn't get any real promotion. Glenn Hughes planned a tour for the album that never happened, and so that didn't do it any service. It was re-released in 1983, and then again, like I said, Deep Purple fans were just kind of more confused than anything else. After the release, an interesting tidbit I learned from his autobiography is that Ozzy told Glenn Hughes he wanted to form a band called Blizzard of Oz with Glenn Hughes on bass. But Hughes didn't want to be in a band where he didn't sing, so he turned him down.
That would have been very interesting, but I can't even like picture that scenario, because like we know that he always wants to sing. He just doesn't want to be in the background.
It's also funny. It would be funny to have Glenn Hughes backing Ozzy, Glenn Hughes is clearly a better singer. And
Yeah.
I love Oz as coming as an Ozzy fan. I love Ozzy, but it would be just funny to have Glenn Hughes and you just sitting back there playing bass, not singing, and you've got Ozzy up in fronting the band. Would be weird.
Yeah, you need like other people that can't sing to be with Ozzy, or just
Yes.
don't sing
Yeah,
rather.
yeah, exactly.
But I mean, you could picture him back there like with the white jumpsuit on, and like, everything's like going off the rail and a crazy train.
Wow. So people like Hughes thought that this was going to be a big thing for him, and it was going to lead to a big successful solo career, and it probably could have, but the drugs really, really held him back. So I'm going to start off with this positive review from Sounds Magazine, 1977. It's long, so I'm just going to give some excerpts. So Jeff Barton says in Sounds Magazine in 1977, he says, "Now this record has been out for an age, I know, but it's only recently that I've been able to get my hands on a copy. On the highly unlikely label of Safari Records, as far as I know, and for reasons I don't understand, it's only been released in Germany and a few other weird places like Greenland and such like. What the hell? Whatever the policy marketing restrictions, this album must be granted a full release in Britain sometime in the near future. Simply must, for Glenn Hughes is really something of a triumph." So he's lamenting the fact that it's not available in England at that time. And it was weird how they did releases. Play Me Out runs the gamut of soulful expression, from the proud, lip-pouting strut of I Got It Covered, through the warm, heartfelt ballad Your Love Is Like a Fire, up to the joyous celebratory I Found a Woman. Hughes knows that he's got a great pair of chords, of course, and occasionally the cockiness proves to be a disadvantage as he crams too many different vocal variations into a song. Also, he sometimes sounds too much like Stevie Wonder for comfort. Unnecessary, unfortunate, but true. So he pretty much raves about the album, but just makes a few of those little points that actually we made.
Mm-hmm.
And the title of this review is Soulful Flight of a Purple Emperor. And the editor put a comment right under it that says, Oy vey, poetic headlines already. I have to agree with them there. So I reached out to our buddy Jorg Planer, and I was like, hey, do you have any other reviews? Because I couldn't find anything really. So he had a couple of reviews from German publications, because he is German. And you and I are not, so we can't read this right here. But this is a German, so he was kind enough to do some rough translations for us. He says this first one that he sent us says basically it's a boring flop. So not very kind.
Oh boy.
He sent the second one. He says the second one is more harsh, saying Glenn is trying to play guitar and sing solo and hearing the album, and he isn't and won't be good in both. His singing in Solution sounds like he's imitating a love-hungry cat. Very harsh.
A love hungry cat.
I love reading the bad reviews, even of albums I love. So that's the kind of reception it got in Germany, despite being released there first.
Ach.
But that's it. Let's play me out.
All right, another one in the books.
Another one in the books for the Deep Purple podcast. All right. Anything else about the album before we close it up and move on to the news?
No, I've said everything that I feel.
Feel about the
Yeah. Glenn Hughes solo is pretty spotty. I don't think that there's like one of his albums that I truly like love the whole thing. He just has like moments here and there.
Yeah.
For in songs for me and other projects he's done.
I think that's when he was in Mark 3 and 4, how it balanced so well because there was so much else going on in those bands.
Yeah.
All right. So in the news from a show a few days ago, so Ginger Baker passed away recently, and Deep Purple, and their show in Portland, Maine, just a couple of days before you saw them, 3 days before you saw them, in a tribute to Ginger Baker, they opened the show with a little Sunshine of Your Love. Glenn Ian Gillan to his Elaine Bennett's dance in the background there. Did he not know the words to the song? He doesn't even have a microphone, so I don't think he's getting up. Kind of a cool little tribute there.
Nice.
Whenever I hear that song, I think of when I was in a band with our friend Dave. His father was a drummer, so what he would do when we had band practice is he would call down the stairs, "Dave, you have a phone call." So Dave would go running up the stairs, and then his dad would run down the stairs and jump on the drums, and we'd always play that song. Me, him, and Dan we'd play "Sunshine of Your Love." For some reason, I always went back to that. He always held the drumsticks like jazz style, like he was frying eggs.
That's great.
We'd jam and Dave would fall for it every time. You have a phone call? Oh, okay. And he'd run upstairs.
That's funny.
It's great.
I remember you telling me that like a while ago,
We do it every time.
and I wouldn't put it past Dave either.
No. Oh,
You
we got a
could
phone call.
you could fool him with anything.
No, he was pretty easy to fool.
What a
Also in the
guy.
news, new book coming out by Martin Popoff, who's written some great books over the years about Deep Purple and many other bands. Sensitive to Light, The Rainbow Story. So this is an update to his old book that's out of print now, which is called Rainbow English Castle Magic. This has a lot of extra. He says it's about 50% longer than the original. He added a bunch of pictures, new interviews, major overhaul in the whole analysis of the band. So should be a really interesting read if you're into Rainbow. Check it out. And it's weird. He doesn't like have an online store or anything set up, so it's just his email address. So I emailed him the other day. I was like, "Hey, can I get a copy of this book?" He's like, "Sure." I was like, "How? So how do we do this?" And I just he sent me a PayPal invoice. I just paid it, and
Oh, nice.
book should be coming soon. So I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait on that one. So
It's funny because I had it just makes me think of the other night when we went to the show. Um, Peter had the extra ticket, so I'm like, yeah, man, how do I pay you back or something? They said, do you have Venmo or something? And
yeah,
him and his friends looked at each other and they started laughing. I'm like, what? And he goes, I can't remember the exact story, but he said, no, it's kind of a joke or something like, because I didn't know what it was. And somebody asked me recently what Venmo was. And it's like, what is that? A disease? Or, and it was just like any one of us would just a total, like, old school guys like in the new world type of thing. It's like, what is this Venmo thing? I want
yeah.
to like I want to pay him by PayPal because spoiler alert, he did not have Venmo,
We
which is why
well,
he left.
PayPal works.
No, yeah, it does. I just like the interface for Venmo is like a lot easier, even though PayPal has an app and everything like that. But
Yeah. My wife uses Venmo. I haven't actually used it yet, but when we get a babysitter, like
yeah.
we'll get a babysitter and she'll be like 20 years old. And my wife will be like, "Oh, do you do Venmo?" She's like, "No." She's like, "You're 20, like you're half my age and you don't do Venmo?" So we'll have to go to the bank and go to an ATM on our way back from going out to dinner or whatever.
Oh boy.
Anyway,
Yeah, then it works the other way. So
yeah, exactly. Also in the news, Steve Morse, there's a really good interview with him. I'll put a link in the show notes, of course. Uh, it's an episode of Ernie Ball Striking a Chord podcast. He talks about being in the band, being on tour with them, and then he tells this kind of disgusting story about when he was first in the band and how people would treat him because he was replacing Blackmore. People would like throw bottles at him and all this sorts of crazy shit. And at one point, he says somebody spit at him and it like spit directly into his mouth.
oh yeah.
Yeah, so I
Ugh.
guess Steve Morse seems like a really low key kind of guy, but I guess he was not low key that night. He jumped. People thought he was just stage diving, but he jumped into the audience and attacked this guy.
I would too, spit in my mouth. What
Yeah,
the?
it's disgusting.
Not unless I ask you to.
So an interesting,
Wah wah.
gross.
No, but really, that's
No,
yeah.
that's not cool.
No, I'd
Um,
go out there and whoop somebody's ass too if they did that.
yeah, not cool. Then we got our history. So episode will come out October 28th through November 3rd. Here is the great news that's coming up that week, or history that's coming up that week, I should say. Most importantly, November 3rd, Nick Simper's birthday.
Nicky.
Nicky. Born November 3rd, 1945.
Look at that friggin' helmet of hair.
I mean, I didn't accidentally pick that picture.
I know.
I had many others to choose from. October 29th, 1984. Oops. Deep Purple releases Perfect Strangers, a triumphant return of Mark II. And then the demise of Mark II, October 30th, 1993. Richie announces his resignation from Deep Purple. He will no longer be playing in the band. And that's the end of this reunion that started in 84 and broke off and came back together. And just kind of was. It was just as tumultuous the second time around.
You know, it's funny. You look at like this picture you have up of like Blackmore and Gillen, and like Blackmore looks like the same as he did like what 10 or 15 years earlier.
Yeah.
And like, you know, Ian definitely looks like he's starting to age a little bit.
Yeah,
But I mean, you
well,
know,
well, Gillen let it go with the hair and everything, and Blackmore's hair is essentially the same hairstyle for the past 30 years.
well, I mean that's what it is when you wear wigs. So
Does he wear wigs?
I am pretty sure
Yeah.
that's got to be a piece.
Yeah.
Well, think about it, right?
I'm
Right.
so bad at noticing that.
Well, I'm like a lot more keen on noticing that stuff these days, just because like a lot of people talk about that stuff,
Yeah.
and like he had that kind of like straight like wiry hair in the 70s, and then all of a sudden he just had like this curly top, like starting like with the Perfect Strangers album, and it never changed, and it's still the same now.
Hmm.
You know, and the guy's like what is his 70s, and it's like not even gray. Come on.
Well, yeah, that part.
I mean, sure,
Definitely.
you could color it, but I mean, it's like at this point, it definitely, yeah, he's not fooling me.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of stuff in this Google search saying that he does.
I mean, it doesn't really matter
Yeah.
one way or the other.
Who
But it
gives a
was,
crap is really the. Well, I think they're pretty convincing. I never really even thought about it, to be honest.
well, I would say like, you know what, like do like Ian Gillan does. Like, sure, we all wish that he still had that gorgeous mane of hair that he used to have, but it's just like, the dude got old and he cut it short, and he's just like going on natural. Roger Glover throws a big old bandana on because he's going bald, or he is
Yeah.
bald.
Yep.
You know, run with it. And then
Exactly.
Don Airy, God bless him, that Charles Bronson haircut.
What if you found out that was a wig? He specifically got it designed to look like Charles Bronson.
There was at one point he was doing a keyboard solo, and I'm just like, yeah, Death Wish.
Oh man.
Oh,
And on that
boy.
note, I think that's all we got this week.
Yep.
All right. Well, next week begins our butterfly ball extravaganza, much to the dismay of everyone but me.
Well, I think I'm gonna have fun listening to it again. I haven't heard it as a album or even clips for like a long time.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot to cover before we get to the album. So
All right.
we're going to start to unravel and deconstruct all of the various people who went into putting that together, which is an immense list. So you'll be introduced probably to some new musicians and singers you haven't necessarily thought of or heard of before. And I get a little bit of a background and a quick background on all of them. So it might be a little bit of a shorter episode next couple of shows before we dive into the actual album, because it's kind of like we did with the Cherkazoo album. It's too much to just cram into one episode, unless we wanted like a 4-hour episode. So we'll get kind of all the introductions of who all these people and players are out of the way, and then we'll dive into actually listening to the album, which I'm very excited to do.
Yes.
And with that, I'll talk to you next week, my friend.
Okay.
All right. Take it easy.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Deep Purple podcast. If you like what you hear and would like more episodes in the future, please donate on Patreon to support the show. You can also give us a rating on iTunes to help new people discover the show. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for show updates. See deeppurplepodcast.com for more details. Thank you for listening.